How many of you have heard about Neuro-Linguistic programming before? All right. How many of you have used it in your practice or business that you know of, possibly? Okay, thank you. Well, Neuro-Linguistic programming, as you all know, I'm sure you're here today because you realize how important it is. It is, it's used in personal business. We're bombarded with things every single day that really go to our unconscious mind without us knowing it oftentimes. And would it be okay with you if I tell you a little bit about myself? Thank you. Just to give you a little bit of background of how I became a master practitioner of NLP, I happen to be a psychologist. I'm a psychologist. I work with adults. I love helping people that are making life changes and going in the right direction that they created in their lives. And oh, it's just really nice to see your smiling faces, by the way. So I got my bachelor's, master's, doctorate, internships, postdocs. I learned a ton about human behavior and how to help people. I graduated with my doctorate at age 29. So I have spent more than half of my life so far learning about these things. And now, the last 14 years or so, I'm practicing it. But after that, I realized that I wanted to learn a little bit more about how to help people create lasting and real change. So I took a Neuro-Linguistic programming course, a practitioner course, took the tests and everything, became a practitioner. And then I decided to go for more and become a master practitioner. So I took an intense course on that took a few weeks, and have also assisted in the courses and started helping people learn as well. I've used it in my practice, and I just find that I just have integrated it so much into my life that I use it in my personal life and in my practice and in everything I do. It's just become kind of like how it's been my secrets to success, if you want to say. I know that's kind of an old phrase that's used a lot, but it really is. It's really amazing too. So I'm excited to share with you some things today. There's so much to learn with Neuro-Linguistic programming that when I thought, oh, I'm going to have an hour to talk about it with people, what will I choose? What shall I choose? And I thought, you know, most people that are going to want to attend this and come to this have already heard about some things. So they've probably heard some basics. I don't want to tell them about too many things they've already know. I want to mix in some things I learned in my master prac that might be new. So I'm gonna do a mix of things. I'm gonna do some all kinds of things today. So I am going to start by screen sharing. Share screen. Let me know, you can unmute yourself and let me know if you have any problems seeing anything, okay? So if you could just look at the top part, don't read it all yet, but Neuro-Linguistic programming, commonly called NLP, was created by two people in the 1970s. And to my knowledge, it's not copyrighted. That's why you hear and see a lot of people still teaching it, because even though they created it, there are a lot of people nowadays that are teaching it, and you kind of have to search for ones that are really you know, teaching in-depth courses. So it was Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the 1970s. The definition of neuro-linguistic programming is, it's an understanding and practice that enables and teaches us to better understand the way our brain, which is the neuro part of that word, processes the words we use, the linguistic part of the word, and how that can impact our past, present, and future, which is the programming part. It's empowering for almost any aspect of life and gives strategies for understanding human behavior and communication. So that's the definition of neurolinguistic programming: how the brain and the words impact our past, present, and future. And there are some presuppositions of NLP. The NLP presuppositions means that these are the basic things that is assumed when using NLP. First of all, it's very respectful of other people's model of the world. And when we say model of the world, that's kind of means we respect how other people think of the world or what their experiences are. You know, when we, just before we started this, when we did the video, we noticed that some people noticed the gorilla, some people did not notice it because they're paying attention to different things because of many reasons. Maybe because they have a background in basketball, or they have a background with animals and they are drawn to see certain things, or their biology just draws their eyes to certain colors, or who knows why. But we all saw the same video, but we didn't notice the same things, and we had a different experience of the video. So that's an example of respecting the other's model of the world. The second one, and they can be in any order, is that a person's behavior and change are to be evaluated in terms of context and ecology. So to keep in mind the person's environment. There's a tendency to judge ourselves based on the environment and other people based on intrinsic values. Did you know that? I'm gonna stop this share for a second so I can see you guys again. So that means that there's a tendency when talking about, let's say there's some kind of tragic thing that happened in the news where somebody assaulted someone, right? This is just an example. In general, when people see someone else do an action, they're more likely to attribute the reason they did that action to who the person is or something inside that person. Whereas when we are in that situation ourselves and might do an action, we attribute it to the environment or what happened or why we did it. You know, I ate a ton of food yesterday because I was at a party and it was hard to say no. And, you know, I'm attributing it to the circumstance rather than to whether I have the ability to commit to my goals or not. You know what I mean? So that goes with that first, that second presupposition, that people's behavior and change are to be evaluated in terms of context and ecology. The third one is resistance in a client is a sign of lack of rapport. So that's fascinating as well. So the communicator takes more responsibility with that statement. So if I'm working with somebody and they're resistant and they're not changing, instead of blaming that person, it's saying that it's coming from, I'm gonna pull this up again, a lack of rapport. So if you go to a store counter and you're asking for help or a special service or something, and they're resistant to help you, it's not necessarily because of them. It could be a lack of rapport, and rapport is so powerful and so valuable. I heard of somebody one time who was just so good at creating rapport with random people that they could get almost anything negotiated. And Rapport, there's a lot that goes into rapport. I don't know if we'll do that today. Maybe at the end, if we have time, if you are interested, we could go into that. But there can be even small things. For example, if you see somebody kind of tapping their feet to the music, and you are going up to ask them for a request, even if they can't see, you can tap your toe inside your shoe to the music, and your body starts to become a little bit in rapport with them unconsciously. And you become like rapport buddies, like you start to see each other as one a little bit more, you know what I mean? So that's really powerful. Number 4, people are not their behaviors. That's obvious, I guess. That goes with the one before. Number 5, everyone is doing the best, not the best, but the best that they can with the resources they have available. So realizing that people really are doing the best that they can. When we have that belief for somebody, when encountering people in the world, it empowers them and us, and it just helps movement happen. The most important information about a person is their behavior. So that means when we're interacting with someone, we're not trying to read their minds. We're not thinking, oh, they did this because of this and this and this, because doing that is a projection of ourself. So that's a tendency to project things. So realizing that people do a behavior, just focusing on that behavior is actually more helpful to you and to them than mind reading or drawing conclusions from what you may believe about that. Does that make sense, by the way? Okay. If you have any questions, put it in the chat box, especially when the page is up, because then I can see it more easily than your faces. Oh, and I also wanted to say that even though I am a psychologist by profession, right now today, I am just teaching. We have no client practitioner relationship or anything like that. I'm just teaching, and we're just learning these principles, okay? I know you know that, but I had to say that. All right. The words that we use are not the event, they are our experience of it. That's pretty straightforward. Everyone is in charge of their mind and therefore their own results in life. So that is a very empowering presupposition of NLP. We are in charge of our mind. That means that we have power over immense amount over our lives. And I know this can look a little bit dry, but if you really let yourself dwell on each line and what that really implies and means, it is so powerful. People have all the resources they need to succeed and achieve their desired outcomes. Kind of goes with the other one before. So if we're in charge of our mind, and we can actually produce anything we want in life, and we have everything we need to achieve our outcomes. Okay, another thing about NLP, have you heard, stop share. Have you heard of people that are kind of scared of NLP or think it's a bad thing? Raise your hand if you've heard that before. Like some negativity about NLP, like why are you using that? Yes, right? Well, one of the presuppositions of NLP is that you're using it to empower people. So everything you do, all procedures increase wholeness. All right? Failure does not exist, only feedback. Okay, so this is one that reminds me of our affirmations. Which affirmation does it remind you of? Failure doesn't exist, only feedback. Anyone raise your hand if that reminds you of an affirmation. It might be in the wizard. I correct and continue. How about that one?
Yeah, correct and
Not a
continue.
failure. Yeah. There's no failure. It's just feedback. We just learned one more way it's not working, but then that just means the next time you can be successful. And obviously we've all heard of the creation of the light bulb. You know, how many times did that take? I don't even remember. Over 100, right? Yes. And he said that he didn't fail. He just found out that many ways that it didn't work, right? Okay. And also, my choices create my reality. That affirmation, that goes a long way. That's totally one of the presuppositions of NLP too, isn't there? Yeah. All right, we're gonna get to more action soon. I just wanna go through this real quick to have the basics. The meaning of communication is the response you get. Now, this is another one that kind of blew my mind, because I realized that that really puts more pressure on the person who's communicating, rather than, oh, so-and-so couldn't understand, or they're not, you know, they're not getting it. It actually puts the responsibility on the person who's communicating. So us as communicators, if we communicate something and someone is not responding the way you would think they would if they understood, or whatever response they get is actually a result of the communication. So it just means become better and better at communicating. The system oh, I love this one. The system or person with the most flexibility or behavior will control the system. The person or system with the most flexibility controls the system. I think a lot of times we grow up or in life, we just feel that if we're too flexible, we're giving in or we're not as strong. But the reality is that the most flexible is in charge, if you really think about that. And there's a lot more we could go into in depth with that. I've just chosen a few things to go into depth with today. But think about that in every aspect of this next week. You know, if you are really wanting something to happen and it's not happening your way, think about how creative you can be and flexible you can be to make things really morph, become a wizard, and just let it happen for you. You know, everything is happening for us if we let it. So the most flexibility wins. Kind of cool. And then lastly, all procedures should be designed to increase choice. So that again is the idea that NLP is an empowering way of being and thinking. Neuro-linguistic programming is empowering. It gives people the ability to have more choice, because if we're aware of our unconscious mind, we have more choice and ability to do what we want in life to get the life we want. It's a really beautiful one. Does anybody have any comments or questions about those things that we just did? Any feedback for me? Any thoughts? Any thoughts of how anything personal? Any personal examples? Oh yeah, really like the flexibility one is my favorite too. Ernest, you said 10,000. What do you mean by that?
Oh, the Edison ideas thing,
Oh,
10,000 light bulbs.
wow, yeah. And Jocelyn, a lot of the wizard principles go hand in hand with NLP. They do. It's amazing. Awesome. Okay, did anybody come here, just raise your hand. Did anyone bring a specific problem they wanted to work on today by any chance? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, 2 people. Awesome. We might do that towards the end. Yeah, we might do that in a little bit towards the end, okay? Just wanted to let you know that. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen. Okay. Okay, another main idea that goes along with this whole thing is that we have an unconscious mind. How many of you believe that there are things you're conscious about and there are things that you are not conscious about that affect you? Thank you. Yeah, we all have things that we don't know, are not conscious about, that affect our life without us realizing it. Palm trees are flexible and the trees that resist the hurricanes the best. Yes, perfect example, flexibility. So the unconscious mind, there are certain prime directives, which means that there's certain things that the unconscious mind does. They have a purpose. There is a purpose for it. And I'm going to talk about the unconscious mind a little bit and the purpose, since a lot of NLP is dealing with the unconscious mind. A lot of times we get stuck in a routine or a habit, bad habit, or a way of thinking, and we don't even realize it, but it has kept us from progressing in our lives the way we want, and we don't know why. We might be strongly fighting and saying, I'm going to have more resolve tomorrow to do this. I'm going to meet my goals. Why am I not doing this? Why can't I follow through? And it's not always because of the conscious things, because obviously your conscious mind is extremely dedicated and really working for you. It's because the unconscious mind, you can think of it as a little child, like you as a little child, maybe 7 years old, maybe 4, who knows? And as a child, when you're presented with certain things or so-called problems or circumstances, you react differently than as an adult when you've learned more, right? We react differently. A child might, for example, a child who has dealt with, let's say, verbal abuse might have learned that staying quiet in a confrontation is the best way to go because it keeps them safe, or it helps them as a child. But you know what? If you stay like that as an adult, it's really not going to help you. You're not going to be able to speak your truth. You're not going to be able to have that power that you want. So the unconscious mind developed originally to help. So here's some things. We're just going to read a few things that the prime directives, it's called, of the unconscious mind. It stores memories. It's the domain of your emotions. It organizes your memories without you realizing it. It represses some memories with unresolved negative emotion. It presents repressed memories. Sometimes it brings up repressed memories when you need to resolve it. Or it could keep the memories repressed because it wants to protect you. It runs the body. The prime directives runs the body. So your set point for example, a weight set point or energy set point, it's unconscious. It's not conscious, right? Your body runs your heart and everything when you're asleep and you're not even aware of it. Preserves the body. It is a highly immoral being, actually. It enjoys serving, needs clear orders to follow, and it controls and maintains all perceptions. It generates, stores, distributes, and transmits energy. The unconscious mind maintains instincts and generates habits. Isn't that amazing? It has a lot of power if it generates habits. Needs repetition until a habit is installed. The unconscious mind is programmed to continually seek more and more. It functions best as a whole integrated unit. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because have you ever felt like there's a part of you that wants something and then the other part wants the opposite? And you're like, why does part of me want to eat junk food whenever I want, and part of me just really want to be healthy? Or anything, whatever it is. Yeah. So the unconscious mind functions best, it works best when it's integrated. The parts are integrated as a whole unit. That makes sense. The unconscious mind is symbolic. It takes everything personally, which can make it hard sometimes. It works on the principle of least effort. So it is very efficient. It does what takes the least amount of work. It does not, oh, this is another one I love. The unconscious mind does not process negatives. That sentence had a negative in it, not, right? And the word negative. So that, have you heard of that? How many of you have heard of that statement before? The unconscious mind does not process negatives. Yeah, okay, I think almost everybody. So I don't need to go into that much, but you know that means that if you say, I will not eat a candy bar. I will not buy a candy bar when I go to the grocery store today. I will not buy that favorite candy bar that I see when I go through that line in this grocery store. What are you thinking right now? You are thinking about that candy bar. Yeah, because the mind does not process the not. My dad used to have a joke, and he used to say, I don't know if you've heard this before. When I was little, he would say, think of anything except for a white polar bear. What do you think of? A white polar bear. You can't stop thinking of a white polar bear. So that's just an example of the mind does not process negatives. Oh, and I wanted to give credit to who taught me my master practitioner training. I took it from Dr. Matt James. You might have heard from the Empowerment Partnership, and I wanted to share that what I had just read was from that, and a lot of what I'm saying I learned through his trainings, which were extremely helpful and in-depth and amazing. I will look into exactly why it doesn't process negative, but to answer your question, but yeah. So the fact is, in one of those sentences, that you've been very specific about what to focus on, and it's just kind of the way the mind works and processes. So Bandler and Grinder, I think one of them was a computer programmer of some sort, so they kind of view the mind as programming, and they just found that it doesn't process negatives. I don't know exactly more of why that happens, but I know that that is true. All right, so I want to take you through one of my favorite processes that is taught in the Master Practitioner. So the ones I talked to you already about were more of the basics, you know, the basic things about NLP, but there's something called parts integration that is a little bit more advanced. And it goes along with what I was saying earlier about having, there's a part of me that wants this, a part of me that wants that. First, I'm going to share my screen a little bit again. Okay, so one goal of the NLP is to bring the unconscious mind and the conscious mind together so that they work for your benefit. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about inductive and deductive, which is the beginning of integrating parts. If you have any questions, just write them in the chat. So you've heard of, how many of you have heard of inductive or deductive reasoning? Know kind of what the words mean, somewhat at least. Okay, so you can kind of think of it as a funnel. I'm going to go back to stop share. You can kind of think of it as a funnel this way, or an upside down funnel. So let's see. Deductive if you're going to deduce something, you go from broad to narrow, right? So you say, somebody, let's see, let me think of an example real quick. Oh, someone's saying something in the chat. I'm glad you guys are here too. Okay, so you go from something broad. For example, let's talk about the universe. That is a broad subject at the top. Let's talk about the planets in the universe. That's a little bit smaller, but still pretty broad. Let's talk about planet Earth. So that's deductive. That's deductive. Let's talk about planet Earth. Let's talk about a continent in planet Earth. Let's talk about a tree on that continent. So that's deductive. That's chunking down. Right? Chunking down, going from broad to smaller. Inductive is the opposite. So chunking up, going from smaller to broad. So let's say, I love chocolate. I also love food in general. I also love, well, what is food? Let's see. Food is a function of, you can just say, you know, food is a function of the body. I also like to drink water. That would be lateral, actually. So let's say I love chocolate, I love food. I love, then you go more to broad, what you love. I love sunshine. I love nature. I love the feeling of loving. So that's kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So an example of inductive or chunking up when we're talking about, let's say, a part, okay? So if I say, a part of me wants to walk in the ocean later today, walk on the beach into the ocean. So chunking up would be, for an example could be, and when you chunk up, you can have different ways of chunking up, but a question would actually lead that way, would actually funnel the purpose of that particular induction. So I want to go on a walk in the beach today, chunking up. For what purpose? Because I want to feel the sand on my toes. For what purpose? Because I feel healthy and free when I do that. What else? Well, when I feel healthy and free, I feel like I can do anything. Well, what does that do for you? Well, that makes me feel at peace with myself. And what does that do? That makes me feel empowered, like I can do anything I want in the world. And what does that do? It just makes me feel like I have a lot of joy and peace. And maybe that's the highest for me. That I went from wanting to walk in the ocean to wanting joy and peace. Like, you can't get much higher than a broad, like, feeling of joy and peace, right? So I really chunked up a lot there. And chunking up and down, they say that when you are in a conversation with somebody, whether it's in a group setting, whether it's one-on-one, whether it is in an interview or negotiation's a good one. The person who's in charge of whether you're chunking up or down has the most power. Isn't that amazing? The person in charge of chunking up or down is the one that's actually in power of that conversation. So it's good information to have, but be careful about how you use that, right? Because you don't want to go into a job interview and know that, you know, that's how you get the most power or whatever, and then dominate the interview, because that's not really going to get your desired outcome. They're just going to feel like, wow, they just came and dominated the interview. Are they going to dominate everything? Am I going to have a say in this? You want to choose it wisely, you know, choose it very wisely. But just to be aware that, so let me give you an example of that. So if you're in a group setting and someone says, I would like to do this group project this way, you could You could ask them, can you be more specific? How do you do that exactly? That's chunking down, right? Or you could ask them, can you tell me why? Like, what's the broad picture of why you want to do this? That would be chunking up. So that would be, you know, the person having the most control, chunking down or chunking up. That's just an example. Okay, let me think. Let me go back. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? Okay. So that was inductive and deductive language examples. If I can do this, I can do anything. That's chunking up. If I'm able to drive a car, I can drive a Toyota. That's chunking down. So chunking up and chunking down can be used for many things that are helpful, including parts integration, which we'll do in a little bit, and negotiation. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do the parts integration. Then we have one more thing that is really exciting to me after that, which is Cartesian logic to disintegrate a problem. So, actually, I'm going to ask you guys, how many of you would like the parts integration kind of both of them, I guess, can take an example. So I could use someone's example. The parts integration is a little more in depth. Should I go for the Cartesian logic first and then just have the example at the very end? Would that work for everybody? Yeah, okay, let's just do that then. So many good things in here. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. It's kind of a nerdy thing, but it's just so fun, huh? Especially when you start using it. Okay, so there's something called a Cartesian logic, and you can use this to help somebody unblock themselves, quote unquote, or yourself become unblocked. So for example, think of a problem that you have. Think of a quote unquote problem that you feel like you have today, right this minute in your life. It can be anything. Just take a second, kind of access something that you're struggling with, okay? Okay. I'm sorry, I just now saw that there's a little bit of confusion between chunking up and chunking down. Did I resolve it after that comment was made? Did I resolve it okay? Or is it still confusing? If so, just you can ask a specific question and I'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay, I'm sorry. So there are certain questions you can use when unblocking yourself or unblocking others. Could somebody throw out just a problem in the chat box? It doesn't have to be your problem, it can be any problem. I won't use your name or anything, just a problem I can work with as an example. And in the meantime, I'm going to read these questions. Now, I'm going to show you a picture that might help you understand this a little bit better too. Someone could just write any kind of problem. Okay, so this is called Cartesian logic. Okay, it looks like mathematics or algebra or geometry or something, right? Do you see that? A, B, A, negative B, negative A, negative B, negative AB. It looks a little complicated and confusing, huh? Well, there are 4 questions, and this I took directly from the workbook from Matt James, by the way, just so you know. Okay, so, oh, great examples. Eating healthy, making good food choices, not happy in a relationship, problem, whether to cancel gym membership or not, staying motivated, more like avoiding burnout. Awesome. Okay, so the eating healthy, making good food choices, and happy relationship, I'm going to use those 2 at the end for parts integration, because I think that that would be perfect when a part of you wants to stay in a relationship, but a part of you is not happy, or a part of you wants to eat healthy, make good food choices, and a part of you wants to eat what you want in the moment. I have both of those aspects of myself. Okay, so I'm going to use, and staying motivated kind of goes with both of those, I think, too. So I'm going to go with whether to cancel a gym membership or not. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, now look at these questions. Should I cancel a gym membership, my gym membership or not? What would happen if you did make that change? What would happen if you didn't make that change? What wouldn't happen if you did make that change? What wouldn't happen if you didn't make that change? Are you confused yet? It's kind of like, the first few are kind of easy to understand and answer silently, right? But then it starts getting to, what does that question even mean? And that's purposeful. That last one is, the last question confuses the unconscious mind and can help dissipate the problem. So there are a lot of things in NLP that, a lot of ways to use language and thoughts that can help dissipate a problem. So these are 4 questions using Cartesian coordinates to unblock. And there are a few other things too. For example, everyone think of a problem you personally have, if you want me to do this with you right now. And I'll try to scramble them, okay? Just for fun. Okay, go inside and try in vain to have that same problem. It was a terrible problem, wasn't it? You want to make changes, haven't you? What would it be like when you've made those changes now? In the future, as you look back and see what it was like to have had that problem, as you think about it now, if you could make this change for yourself so that you could stop having made that change and see yourself now. Do you like the way you look if you could make that change and look back at yourself having made that change now? Where's the problem? Is it gone? Do you remember what it was? All right. Another easier way to use the Cartesian logic are these 4 simple questions. They're a little bit smaller so you can remember them pretty easy. What is it? So what is the problem? The problem is, I don't know if I want to go to the gym, cancel my gym membership or not. What is it? That's the answer to that one. What is it not? How do you know what it is not? What is it that you need to not know to know this? Is your mind kind of mush right now? It's supposed to be. And it might seem kind of silly and like it doesn't make sense, but it actually dissipates it. What is the problem? How do you know it's a problem? When did you decide that? When don't you do it now? What are you not deciding when you don't do it? How is that different from how you were? How do you know that now? What other changes would you like to make? Go inside. Oh, I did this one already. Go inside and try in vain to have that same problem. Okay, that's a little bit, that's kind of fun sometimes. Can you hear me okay? I just saw that the connection is a little unstable. Is that okay for you right now? Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so the goal was to bring together the conscious and unconscious mind. All right, so I'm going to go into the parts integration right now. Does anyone have any questions about that dissipating a problem right now? Okay. There's also a thing I could go through if a client or somebody says, I've already decided, how you can kind of, it's called decision destroyer. It's pretty cool. I could do that later if you want to. Tell me if you want. Tell me if you want me to do that and I'll do it. Is that a yes or no? A yes? Okay, I'll just do that really quick, okay? All right, if a client says, I've already decided, that's a hard one, right? Or anybody, it might not be a client, it might just be your friend. I'm not gonna go to the park with you, or I'm not gonna go hiking with you because I've already decided. Okay, pace, first of all, there's 6 steps. The first one is pace the problem. Get the client back to the decision. When did you decide that? Number 2, where were you when you decided that? No, where were you when you were deciding that? Number 3, just before that, where were you? And I just want to let you know, this requires a lot of rapport. So you got to get in rapport with the person. You can't just say it to a random person. They're going to be like, why are they asking me these strange, weird, annoying questions? You got to get in rapport. So the third one, just before that, where were you? Yeah, maybe I should do the rapport. Now, as you think about your present situation in life, notice how many options you have now. Think of that problem and notice how you feel now. As you think about the next time you may do blah, 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 whatever it was, knowing what you know now, notice how much better you feel not doing it. Pretty cool, huh? Teach us rapport. Oh, what was the one before that you were, oh, teach us rapport. Do you guys want to learn rapport or just go straight to parts? All of the rapport, all of the above, rapport? Okay. Well, how about, okay, we have about 20, 25 minutes left, tops. How about I do about half of each? Would you guys want that instead? Okay. And I can, there's a whole lot more we could do later. If you want me to do this again another time, we could do more, learn more and more and more. Okay, it's always fun to learn. Okay, let's do rapport. I didn't really have that planned, but why not just do a little bit anyway? All right, let's see where to start off the top of my head. Have you heard of let's see, what's it called? Have you heard of people who learn best from visual versus auditory versus kinesthetic? Okay, all right. So one of the first things that you can do to get in rapport with someone is to kind of notice that. Notice if they tend to be a more visual person or if they're more auditory. If they're more kinesthetic. And then there's another one. It's called auditory digital. It's kind of like, I feel like I'm that one a little bit more, a little harder to explain that one, but you kind of need a lot of different information to, and yes, you can be more than one, definitely. I definitely feel like I'm more than one, and I think most people have more than one. And okay, so to notice that, you can notice their language patterns. So people who tend to be auditory, for example, might say something like, I hear you, or that sounds great, or that rings a bell. People, I'm Gemini Taurus, thanks, that was helpful. Someone who's more visual might say things like, I see, or that looks good. I see what you mean. Or they might just notice things that are more visual. Someone who's more kinesthetic might say something like, I get that, or I feel you, or something to that effect. Does that make sense? So when you talk with these people, the language you use is extremely important. So if you've noticed that someone is more auditory, using auditory words with them will create rapport. So if someone's saying, can you explain this, or that sounds good, and you say, does that feel good? That's not really going to resonate with them. But if you say, yeah, it rings a bell, doesn't it? They're going to get it. That's going to be rapport. You're creating rapport. And so for someone that's kinesthetic, if you say something like, do you feel me? Or does that feel right to you? Or are you picking up what I'm putting down? That might be more of a kinesthetic thing to say. Or do you see, for visual, do you see what I mean? Things like that. There's so many aspects to rapport also. There's also things that you can do without using words. For example, if you come up face to face with somebody, just notice how they're sitting. So like right now, looking at the screen, pick one person. Don't change how you're doing, because that'll help them. If you're having a certain position, don't change it. That'll help them look at something. Pick one person and notice how they are sitting, how they're holding their body. Are they leaning forward? Are they leaning back? Can you see how they're breathing at all? If you get really good at seeing how someone's breathing, you're getting good at rapport. I haven't gotten that good yet. Some people are so good that they can see when their eyes are dilated, and or what direction their eyes are going and stuff like that. That's another way. That's another thing to learn, by the way. We could do another day. Eye movements, because for most people, the majority of people, moving your eyes in different places accesses different things. For example, feelings or visual things, things like that. But anyway, you can notice how they're breathing. You can notice how their skin looks, if it looks like they're warm, or maybe they're nervous and they're cold, or relaxed, or tense, if their muscles are tense, or if they're scratching their head, if they're tapping, like you can't see my whole body, but like if they're tapping nervously, like Russ is doing. Yeah, if their back is towards you and they're painting like Diane, like all kinds of things. You can just notice it. And rapport is kind of having the similarity. So you can start doing that with them. So for example, you see the movements Diane is making? If you try to get that in your body and maybe make that movement with your leg as she's doing it. And you kind of feel how she might be feeling right now as she's painting, right? And then if someone's leaning forward, you might lean forward with them. If they're leaning back and feeling relaxed, you don't want to get in their face, because that might feel a little not rapport with them. So rapport is kind of matching and mirroring. Matching and mirroring. Polarity is the opposite of rapport. So that's a whole different thing. Oh yes, also voice tone. Thank you so much, Andrea. So voice tone. So if you hear how my voice has been, that's just my natural way, given my state right now. My voice sounds like this. If I was really, really nervous or scared, it might be higher, and it might be louder, and it might be a little more in my chest, might be a little more annoying to hear, right? If I was really sleepy, it might be slower, and it might be more relaxed, and you might not be able to hear me. But whatever it is, you can match and mirror voice tone as well, anything you can think of. So that is the gist of rapport. And having rapport with somebody helps break down defenses, because when we notice that someone is similar to us, we let our guard down a little bit. Does that seem accurate? For those of you, I know a couple of you at least have gone through NLP trainings. Is there anything else with rapport that you've thought of that you want to mention, to add? Oh, yeah, that's a good phrase. It feels right. That's good for someone who's kinesthetic. It feels right. I see what you mean for someone who's auditory. Yeah, that's awesome. So rapport is necessary when interacting with anyone. It's kind of one of the basic fundamentals you want to do before doing any other thing. If you're a practitioner, for example, you want to always make sure you have rapport. All right, are there any questions or comments? Okay, so I'm going to go into the parts integration. And rapport is the #1 thing to do before you ever do parts integration. Yes, and polarity is the opposite of rapport, and it's very good for building sexual chemistry. So are you usually attracted to someone who's just exactly like you? Usually you want the opposites attract, usually, you know? So decide on what your goal is before you decide whether you want to have rapport or not. But you always need a little bit of rapport, even if you have polarity, but polarity is the opposite. I keep forgetting that. Oh no, that's not something you want to forget. Okay. You only attract opposites, so that sounds fun. Okay, so parts integration. A part of you, a part of me, is the unconscious with a purpose or intention. It has a function and behavior. So for example, if part of me wants to be healthy, that's a little broad. I'm just going to say it anyway because you know what I mean. If part of me wants to have healthy habits today, and I know what healthy habits mean to me. Let's say I know exactly what foods are good for me and what that means to me. Okay, and part of me wants to be free and eat what is pleasurable to me today. Those are two parts. Okay. They're functionally detached, and they often represent minor personalities. They usually have their own values and belief systems and think they are in charge of maintaining the system. Their goal, whether it is successful or healthy or not, their goal is to protect you and to continue non-integrated behavior. Parts are usually a source of incongruency in somebody. The part themselves is incongruent, and it's usually the difference between the purpose and intention and the function or behavior. Does that make sense? So that means that the part usually has an incongruence. So it has a purpose or higher purpose or intention. So for example, the part of me that wants to eat junk food, the higher purpose is for me to have maybe pleasure or joy or peace or feel free to do what I want. The function or behavior of it is where it gets kind of off. So that makes sense, right? Okay. And but the part of me that wants to have a healthy lifestyle might, if you chunk up higher and higher and higher, what's the purpose? Well, you know, if you chunk up higher to the highest level, it might have, and usually always has, similarities to the other opposite part, which is fascinating. So I might also want to have pleasure and peace and joy. Yes, chunk up is like zooming out. Yes, zoom out. Thank you. A part usually has its opposite, an alter ego. the flip side of the coin. These two parts will have the same highest purpose or intention. They were once a part of a larger whole. And that's why reintegration is possible, because they were once part of a larger whole and they have the same highest intention or highest purpose for you. Make sense? Okay, so I am going to, and this is recording, so you'll be able to listen to it again if I go too fast, but I'm going to go over how to do parts integration. So if you or someone else wanted to do this, and this is how you would do it. First of all, you identify what the problem is. So what is the problem? You can write that down right now if you want. What is the problem? How is that a problem? So not only do you want to understand what the problem is, but how is it actually a problem to you? Why is that a problem? Sometimes it's not really a problem. Okay, so once you find out how it's a problem, elicit the unwanted part. Oh, I don't know, something happened outside just now. I don't know if that was an earthquake or what. Okay. So you say, I wonder if I can talk to this part. And there are two ways to do this parts integration. Once you get really good, you can just do it verbally. So you could do it over the phone with somebody or in casual conversation, and it might not be even evident what you're actually doing. But when starting out, I'm going to do it just kind of the long way, I guess. So you would have someone sitting comfortably in front of you. I don't know if you can see my arms right now, and have their arms, kind of like what Andrea is doing and what I'm doing, kind of have their arms relax, the upper part relax, and their elbows kind of relax, and then just hold their arm, but do not let their arm rest on their actual leg. Hold it up above the leg. Just have those two hands there kind of resting but active. And say, I wonder if I can talk to this part. Which hand would it like to come out and stand on? Mm-hmm. What does the part look like? Does it look like somebody you know? Does it sound like them? Does it feel like them? I'd like to talk to the part with which this part is most in conflict. So then that's the other hand. And you let them decide which hand is which part, because that's integrated already in their body. I'd like to talk to the part with which this part is most in conflict. The flip side of the coin. And if you guys want to do this right now with me, you can. Instead of, you can look at it at any level. You could look at it as you're learning right now to do this with people, or you could just do it, whichever way you'd like. Okay, so you have your two hands out, one part on each hand. What does this part look like? What does the other part look like? Does it look like someone you know? Does it sound like them? Does it feel like them? What is this part's intention? So you have one part on one hand. What is that part? Does it look like a little tiny version of you? What are you wearing? What do you look like? What about the other side? What is that part, the opposite? What does that look like exactly? Maybe there's a symbol. I did this last night with someone to practice, and their symbol was a gas card. All right. Start with one of the parts. Choose whichever part you'd like. Keep both hands up as you do it, though. Keep both hands up equally up. This one part you're starting with, what is that part's intention? And you know what I mean, because we talked about this a few minutes ago. What is that part's intention? You might say anything. Could be, I want to have fun. Could be anything. You know what it is right now. Okay? And then continue. For what purpose? For what purpose do you want to have fun? Well, I want to have fun because I want to feel free. Whatever comes up for you. What is the intention of that? What is the intention of feeling free? Well, then I will feel happy. For what purpose do you want to feel happy? Or whatever it is. Some of you are doing it, some of you are listening. So keep on chunking up. Keep asking yourself, for what purpose? Really get in there what actually the purpose of this part of you is. The part is there for a true purpose to protect you and to help you live your highest goals and dreams and your ideal self. So keep chunking up and up. Keep asking, for what purpose? What is the intention of that? All the way up until you get to the highest possible intention and purpose. And you'll know that it's the highest possible when it becomes something that you can't really quantify, like, I want peace, world peace, or I want love, or some feeling, when it comes so high that, and if you get so high where you kind of start circling around again, well, peace would give me joy, or, then kind of lump that all together. And then if there's anything higher than that, get to the very highest. All right, so you got to that. What will that do for you? What will that make you feel? Okay, and now you go on the other side. And you do the same exact thing for the other part. Give that other part the same attention. It deserves the same attention because it also has a really good purpose for you and good intentions for you. What is that part's intention? And keep asking, for what purpose? What is the intention of that? Why? For what purpose? What does that do? What will that do for you? What will that make you feel? And keep going up and up and up and up and chunk up and chunk up. And then you might notice, I wonder if you've noticed that your hands are coming together. Your hands start to move together. Do both parts recognize that they share the same highest intention? Do both parts recognize that? Now, do these parts notice that they were once part of a larger whole? Have your parts notice the resources and attributes each part has that the other part would like to have. This is done a little more in the verbal one. When we do it verbally, think of the parts of one side. What does the other side have that that side would like to have, and vice versa? Are there any other parts that would like to join in this integration? Good. Have those parts come out and integrate now. Only let the hands come together as quickly as they can fully integrate easily and effortlessly right now. Take the integrated part inside, put it towards your chest, inside, and have it merge into the wholeness inside. That was a big one, wasn't it? You can open your eyes now. Now close your eyes, and I want you to think of an unspecified time in the future where you might have used to have a part of you that wanted something or the other, and realize that now you have clarity because you understand what the highest purpose and values are, and you have an integrated inner whole. Awesome.